letting go is very meaningful when you don't want it. Okay? And like I say, it's not renunciation outside. It's saying, I have an ego, but I don't have to buy into it. I don't have to own it. I'm a witness conscious, and I see that there's these things in here. They come up naturally, don't they? They have a way of finding you.
In this episode of Insights at the Edge, I am with Michael Singer, a friend, beloved wisdom teacher, founder of the Temple of the Universe, and the author of 4 books, which, in my opinion, are all to be considered spiritual classics. Books you go back to again and again that stand the test of time. Approximately 20 years ago, The Untethered Soul was published, followed by The Surrender Experiment, which was autobiographical in nature, followed in 2022 by a book called Living Untethered. So now we're seeing an untethered series. And then earlier this year, the 3rd book, you could say, in the Untethered Soul series, Wisdom Untethered, The Time for Questions. I have to say, even though I wonder if it's just because it's the book I'm reading right now, Wisdom Untethered might be my favorite of all of the books because it's so practical, so immediately applicable to the questions in our lives. And that's what we're going to be talking about. In the creation of Wisdom Untethered, Michael, along with his team, they gathered 1,200 questions. People wrote in questions to Michael Singer about the issues that were raised in his previous books. They asked him questions when he gave talks at the Temple of the Universe. They distilled these 1,200 questions into 200 terrific and essential questions and put them into different categories. Michael, I'm almost ready to bring you on. I just want to give people a sense of how incredible this book is. So there are chapters on ego and self-concept, desires and preferences, dealing with fear, engaging with the world, relationships, and more. The subtitle, A Time for Questions, and this is our time for questions. Michael Singer, welcome.
Hi, Tami.
Hi.
Hi.
Here at the very beginning, you say right at the start of the book in the preface, ultimately, life is asking you a single question, even though there are 200 questions in the book, a single question. Are you willing to let go? Let's start there, why you say it could be distilled into this one question.
Well, it really explains my entire path. I started off back in 71 or so, dropping out and meditating 6 hours a day and just, I'm getting out, okay? And what life did to me was to say, yes, it's good and you should try to get out, but you should also find out why you're not. What's the anchor? What's holding you down? Because otherwise you're stretching yourself to try and go up, but there's something holding you down. And that's where I learned to let go. People misunderstand some of the teachings, especially in the surrender experiment, that letting go means outside. Don't deal with anything. Don't argue with anybody. Don't disagree with anybody. Don't have a political view, right? Letting go is something you do inside, and it's a form of meditation. Except it's walking meditation. It's constant, okay? And what happens is you walk through life and not everything fits, if you haven't noticed, right? Things happen that cause fear to come up. Things happen that cause desire to come up. Things happen that cause insecurity to come up. Things happen that you feel defensive and so on. And it took a long time with me to get to the point where I realized that is where it's at. Where it's at is saying, if this stuff comes up, you don't want it in there. It's been in there. Well, we'll have plenty of time to talk about it throughout this hour, but it's been in there a long time. That doesn't give it a reason or excuse to say, I want it in there. You don't want it in there. It's causing all this trouble. Or are you defensive, right? Because you got hurt previously, or because, people said things, you didn't defend yourself and you were sorry later. Instead, you get to the point where you say, I don't want it in there. I love myself. I love everybody, but I don't need that garbage in there from my past. So when it comes up, are you willing to let it go? And I've learned that that's the entire path. If you are willing to let it go, even to the very, very deep levels, right? Letting go is very meaningful when you don't want to. Okay. And like I say, it's not renunciation outside. It's saying, I have an ego, but I don't have to buy into it. I have to own it. I'm a witness conscious, and I see that there's these things in here. They come up naturally, don't they? They have a way of finding you. And what you find is if you're willing to let them go, I'll do it quickly, all this Shakti starts flowing inside, where there used to be fears and anxieties or jealousies or insecurities, right? And needs and wants and so on. Now, all of a sudden, there's less of that. And to whatever degree there's less of that, and literally one to one, whatever degree there's less of that stuff in there, you start feeling this beautiful upward flow of Shakti, energy pouring up inside of you until you finally reach the point where you say, I'm going to let go of what? Every single thing that comes up to the best of my ability. You will not be perfect, believe me, right? But if it comes up, I'm going to take the position, I don't need this in here. Then I'll deal with it. You don't not deal with things, but first you let go. So that's what letting go means.
You mentioned as you were talking about this path of letting go that early in your life you wanted to quote unquote get out, and then you
Yes.
discovered this art. And one of the misunderstandings, I think, of your work that you address right early on in Wisdom Untethered is this approach that you teach a type of spiritual bypassing? Let's get out or not. And you're very clear that it's not spiritual bypassing. So can you explain that?
Yeah, it's literally the opposite. What spiritual bypassing means, what are you bypassing? What came up that was difficult? What came up that was uncomfortable? I don't want to deal with that, so I'll have a spiritual ego. I'll serve. I'll do anything I can do. I'll wear white clothes. I don't want to pick anybody. I'll do things that look spiritual, while really what's going on inside is anything but that. That to me is what's meant by spiritual bypassing. All right. If when it comes up, you're willing to address it, not address it, I mean fix it. You don't have to fix it. You have to let it go. That's very different. So you're not avoiding it. And the way I tell it ultimately, I think the clearest is you don't go down to it. You let it come up to you. And that's very deep. It will come up to you unless you push it away. So it's not bypassing. It's inviting it to come up and letting it pass through. All right? So it's literally lifting you. You're not bypassing it. And all the stuff down there, it's called transmutation of energy. Every single thing that's down there, no matter how dark it is, no matter when it happened, no matter how long it's been in there, is capable of turning into light as you let it go. But you don't do that. It happens naturally as you let go. All right? Yogananda once said, which I really like, he said, darkness is the absence of light. It's not a bad thing. It's the absence of light. So if you're willing to let go, really let go, then what's underneath it all is God, is Shakti. So I'm glad people talk about spiritual bypassing because some people do that. This is the opposite. This is welcoming it to come up and relax through it so that it can make its way completely through and not be bypassed.
So to get a little bit more precise, often when you talk about what it is that we're letting come up, you describe this using language from the yogic tradition as our samskaras have been triggered by XYZ event, and that's what's coming up. So explain samskaras, particularly for people who are hearing that word for the first time.
Well, actually, fortunately, it becomes very easy because of modern psychology and psychology altogether. Like, I love Freud, okay? Like, he was not an enlightened spiritual being in any way, shape, or form, but he brought to the surface that, you know what? You shove stuff down in there. That's a samskara. It's not a memory. Memories come and go. You can have memory, you can bring it back. It doesn't do anything. It's fine. You should remember things. They do. They pass through, and then you can bring them back. A samskara is one that didn't pass through, that basically it came in and you couldn't handle it. It disturbed you so much that you in there, you have will in there, you pushed it away. Okay? And so that's what a samskara is a pattern that was a pattern in life that happened. If it didn't happen, don't worry about it. But it obviously happened. It's called reality. And it didn't make it through you. Everything will make it through you if you let it, if you let go. So you didn't let go. So now you stored this stuff inside. And that's where all the negativity comes from. That's where all the darkness comes from. That's, it literally, those blockages that you shove down there are blocking the light. So to sit there and have all the blockages and then reach for the light, it's wonderful. By all means, do everything you can. But if you let go of the blockages, it naturally it turns into light. So basically, that is what a samskara is. Not a difficult concept. It's basically something that came in. How do you know? You know. You don't read Dillo, it didn't come in, right? It came into your inside. Happened outside, happened inside too. But happened outside, let's say. Somebody said something, somebody did something, somebody didn't say something, didn't do something. It came in and it hit you wrong. And what do? You attempt to protect yourself from it. It's not even a thing. It's just energy at that point. It comes in and it's energy inside. If you protect yourself from it, what you're doing is resisting the energy, and it will stay blocked in there. What I teach is it circles around itself. Energy has to keep moving. Well, the way that energy can move and stand still is in a circle. That's why the circle is such an important shape in our universe. Planets, this, that, everything, all right, is because energy can stay in one place and still be moving. But you don't want that energy in there. I always ask people, did you like that experience you had when you were 5 or 10 or 15 or 20 and different things happened? No. Then why did you choose to keep it? Right? It's already over, right? I mean, then you're gone and everything's over from your childhood. Why did you decide that because I don't like it, I'll keep it? So a samskara is something you kept, you pushed it away, which I understand. Things are difficult to deal with, but you'll see through this talk that the essence of all my teachings are you can learn to be more open. You can learn to deal with it. You can learn to let it go. You don't know how to. Now the natural impulse is to push it away, to protect yourself and try to create an environment outside which doesn't hit your stuff. Eventually you'll catch on. Come and get it. You want a piece of me? Take it, because I don't want it. I don't want that stuff in there. So that's what a samskara is, and that's what the path of purification. Real purification doesn't mean you don't swear. Purification means you don't have all that stuff in there.
One of the 23 chapters is on samskaras, is dedicated to that. And one of the things you write in that chapter, since they were generally stored with pain, they'll come back with pain.
Yeah.
You have to be willing to handle the disturbance they create without pushing them back down. So I think this is a really important point, Michael, because when I read your opening question in the preface, are you willing to let go? I scribbled to myself, yes, but it sounds painful. This is going to be painful. And actually it is. Yes.
You know what? Childbirth is painful, but people go back for second, thirds, and fourths or more. Okay? Why? Because the benefit of putting up with, dealing with, surrendering, relaxing in the face of the pain is worth what you gain. You don't want that stuff down there. You have to, we'll talk about this more as we talk. What do I do if I have it down there? You have to protect yourself from it. How? By hanging out with certain people that you don't think will challenge you, by being only with people that are friendly and never dealing with people that hurt you before. You won't move. I'm not moving to Arizona because there are rattlesnakes, and I once saw a snake, and I've been scared of them ever since. It patterns your entire life. It will decide who you marry and who you don't marry. No. My uncle talked to me like that, and I don't. Right? It's like you start making every decision based on what protects you from yourself. a deep understanding, all right? That's what you're doing. You're protecting yourself from yourself. You're protecting yourself from life. Life's going on everywhere. It's all over the place. Doesn't bother you. All that bothers you is the little piece that comes in to you, all right? And it's hilarious. But you don't like it, look to the left, look to the right, look up, look down, right? But the point is, it's happening everywhere, and it's going to hit your stuff, all right? Move out to the woods. I moved out to the woods to meditate in solitude like a year and a half, right? And I'm embarrassed to say it, right? I mean, it's really way back in the woods, right? And I'm trying to meditate, there's a dog barking. It bothered me as much as somebody criticizing me, right? What are you doing with that dog in the distance? It's like, you're not going to get away from yourself, okay? If you have preferences and fears and desires, and they're going to get stimulated either internally or externally. You get to the point where you understand it is one of the great saints once told me, is the pain that ends all pain. If you are willing to, and the question becomes not, is it painful? Of course it's painful. It was stored with pain. That cycle of energy that I talked about, you blocked pain. You blocked that disturbing experience. So of course it's going to come back. A lot of times somebody says something and you start crying. Right? Oh, don't talk like that. I told you not to talk like that. All right. Well, it's not how you want to be. You want to sit there and say, I don't want that in me. It's pain waiting to happen. How about that? Which pain do you want? The pain that's waiting to happen, or the pain that you're learning to let go of so it's not in there for the rest of your life? I know what I choose, right? And so do a lot of other people. That's why they like the different books, all right? Because it finally addresses the fact that, of course, it's going to be painful. It was stored with pain. What do they say when you lift the weights? No pain, no gain. Okay? You're not trying to get into pain. You're not putting yourself in a situation that you know will be painful. Don't worry, life will do that for you. It's perfectly willing. You don't have to worry about doing it. What you deal with is, am I willing, when it comes up, and my tendency inside is to push it away, just ask, do I want this in there for the rest of my life? All right? I don't care how big it is, right? It does not have to be, and that's the main point. People ask me, well, what about really, really terrible things that happen to people, right? Don't they have to stay in there and just cope with them? Absolutely not. Anything that's in there is in there because your will is holding it in there, either subconsciously or consciously. All right, that's all Freud stuff, denial, repression, suppression. That's all, I couldn't handle it, so I pushed it away. I understand. Of course, we deal with each other with tremendous compassion and understand, especially if you walk this path, you'll learn to be compassionate for others, all right? Even if they're not anything like you, right? They had their experiences that cause issues. Well, you had yours that cause issues. And so you stop judging altogether. And you just sit there and say, when it comes up, do I want to keep it in there? Of course I don't want to keep it in there. And then the other side, like I said, is when you're willing to let go and you start to see what happens when you let go. Instead of the pain being down there or the fear of the pain, there's all this Shakti, there's all this God, there's all this light that comes pouring up inside all the time. Okay? It's because your natural state of being. Well, why wasn't it that way before? Because you held all that stuff in there. So you get to the point where you realize, I don't want it in there. And I don't think anybody does. If I ask you, you had trouble with your mother, trouble with your father, trouble with your sister, right? Do you want that to bother you for the rest of your life? You say, no, but it does, and I don't want to have to deal with it. Well, that's spiritual bypassing, okay? It's non-spiritual bypassing. You're pushing life away outside so you don't have to push it away inside. Yoga and the deep spiritual practices are about, I am open to going through what I need to go through. What Ramdas used to say, use it to go to God. Use it to go to God. Okay? And that's what you start realizing. And God can be whatever you want it to be, right? But part of it is love and ecstasy and joy and Satchidananda, right? And you start realizing that is what's in there. And then you're willing to go through this and let it go. I don't know what to say. You're playing volleyball and you block a shot, a spike. Well, you may get a black and blue mark on your hand. Oh, I'm never going to play again. Of course you're going to play again. You enjoy the sport. You enjoy the challenge. Not to mention football players, right? So you just stop being a baby and realize I'm not going to live in my life because I can't handle things. I'm open to saying, okay, some things as they're cleansing, especially cleansing things, some things as they're cleansing are going to bring back memories and thoughts and feelings that are not comfortable. They weren't comfortable to start with, so they're sure not going to be comfortable now. Good. and we will go deeper into this as to what I've learned is the right attitude about how to deal with that stuff in there. Okay.
Someone asks, what's the approach you take to releasing samskaras? And you say, being a naturopath in most things is the path that you take, being a naturopath. What did you mean by that?
That means, don't worry, life will take care of you. To me, life is the guru. Every moment of every day, right? Things are happening. Earth is a happening place. Okay? No matter where you go on any spot on this amazing planet, there's something happening. Can you handle it? And that's what my path has evolved into for me. All right. And apparently for a lot of others, which is, of course I can handle it. It's just an experience. It comes and it goes. But what if I can't handle it? Then work on learning to handle it. That's my big thing. You can't play the piano when you first sit down. Well, we might as well quit. You can't play Beethoven or Tchaikovsky. All right. You can't play a sport. Go pick up a tennis racket first time. That ball's going to the net. I quit. No, you don't do that. You have this thing called learning, don't you? Right? We all learn. We learn how? By practice. That's how you do this path. You understand life is going to do its thing. Okay? If it bothers you, that's because it hits something inside of you. Are you willing to learn to let go? It takes time. It takes practice. You start with small things. I tell everybody, start with the weather. The weather is your guru. The weather is a great teacher. Why? Because you can't handle it. Can't handle it's windy, blows your hair. Can't handle that it's hot, or you sweat. Can't handle it's cold, you shiver, right? And you complain about something you have no control over, right? And you get to the point where you say, well, why can't I handle the weather? What's the matter with me? And you start saying, I want to be able to handle the weather. Not I want to be able to complain about it, let it bother me. That doesn't do any good. But the other one I use all the time. People tell me I always use the same examples. Yes, I do, because they're good examples, all right? The driver in front of you. Tami, you ever been behind a driver in front of you? They use their blinkers, they put their brakes on all the time. They're driving 15 miles an hour below the speed limit. Question to all of you. Do you ever talk to them? Guess what? They don't hear you. But you're bothering yourself about absolutely nothing. You're in a little planet, spinning in the middle of nowheres, and you are not dealing with the fact that if you bother yourself about the weather, you bother yourself about the car in front of you, you're going to bother yourself about the fact that someone didn't say hello, or bother yourself about when you tell them, oh, I love you so much. I can handle that. And they say, yeah, I love you too. I don't like the tone. It's like you can be bothered by everything. Instead, you start with the small stuff, like the weather in the car in front of you. Why is that small? Because the cost benefit, and I'm a businessman, the cost benefit analysis, 100% cost, you're bothered, and zero benefit. Didn't do any good for anybody. Well, that's not a good business decision. And so you sit there and say, from now on, I'm going to come into life every morning, wake up, meditate, do what you need to do, but at least wake up and say, I am going to go through this day without getting bothered by stupid little things. Okay? And you practice, and you won't do good, but then you sit down at night and you say, is there stuff that I could have let go of that I didn't? Am I willing to let go now? And you start practicing. It's called practice. You practice being open. You practice letting go. You practice not shoving. Literally, what you should say first in the morning is, I got all the stuff in here. I ain't putting no more in today. I know I get enough trouble getting the stuff. Have you noticed they've put the stuff down? There's hard to get out. Right? But if you don't complain about it and you don't push it down, it doesn't have to stay down. It will pass right through. And so you start practicing letting go. You practice with small stuff, and eventually, though I'm not going to brag because the teacher once told me, anything you say you can do, when you can challenge. So I don't do anything.
But I want to talk more here about the practice, because
Okay.
in Wisdom Untethered, you offer lots of actually very specific practice suggestions that I found so helpful. One of them is this notion of falling behind. And I'm wondering if you can explain that more. What do you mean? You're falling behind the pain that you're experiencing, the disturbance?
You're falling behind the resistance to the pain. You're in there. You want to call it witness consciousness, call it whatever you want. Maybe you've never heard of the witness consciousness. You're still in there noticing your thoughts. Believe me. All right. Everybody's in there. Okay. Do you notice that you push things away. Yes. Okay. Falling behind means the energy that's coming up is disturbing. I'm not saying it's not disturbing. You wouldn't be talking about it. It wouldn't disturbing. It's disturbing you. Okay. Are you willing to relax like in yoga? When you go into a posture, an asana, they tell you relax into it. All right. So here it starts to come up. You tend to resist. Are you willing to relax and fall behind the tendency to resist? That's one of the techniques. All right. And it really is the essence of spirituality. You understand? It was all said and done. You're doing that if you're going anywhere. All right. Otherwise, you're going to stay down here fighting with yourself. And so it comes up and you look at it and you just, I don't know. When you push it away, you are resisting. Resistance is an act of pushing away, all right? Tensing. You can't resist without tensing, all right? If you relax, you can't tense. You've relaxed. You don't want to sit there and stare at it. Like I said before, it's not that you have to, you can, if you, people teach you different things, they're all fine with me, but if you don't have to go down into it, if you can, let it come up to you. That's a much higher path. If you're willing to let it come up to you and let it pass through, it's going to go out over time. If you go down and get all involved with it, a lot of times it gets worse before it gets better. But one thing I want to get straight, there are lots of techniques, and I honor all of them. Okay, I really do. I just want you to grow. I just want you to work on a regular basis to free yourself from yourself. And that's what's going on. All right. But in the past, I'm talking about if you can fall behind the energy, right? There's a place behind the energy. But the one deeper in living untethered was, let's say you can't. I certainly went through times in my early path where the pain, the thing was very disturbing, right? And it was causing all kinds of trouble. And I couldn't get behind it. And I learned that if I lie down, stretch my arms out to the side, lift my chest up, right? And let the energy flow over me instead of me getting behind it. Welcome it to just flow like me getting in the water, and the water can flow over you. So you don't have to fight the energy. There's lots of different techniques where what you don't want to do is push the energy back down. I don't know what to say. If you push it back down, it's going to stay there, right? So if you can fall behind it, that's very high. That has every opportunity to come up and release. Not the first time. It's not a technique like a drug, right? The first time you try to relax, it goes and it's gone, right? Some things are deep. They will take multiple times. You didn't learn the piano in one sitting, right? Or tennis. Well, this is something you practice. And the more you practice, the better you get, right? But that's another technique, the technique of lying down. And I said, stick your chest out. It's slightly different. Lie down and fall to the floor. Let your body just fall to the floor and let that disturbing energy pass over you. Lift the chest up is when I say, offer it to God, offer it to Mother, right? There it is. Here, you take it. I don't want to fight it. I don't want to own it. Here, you take it. And you just keep offering it up. There's lots of ways to work with the energy. And the worst way is to suppress it.
I want to just highlight one word that you used, offering, because you talk about how you can take it in your hands, like cup this disturbance and actually offer it up to the divine. I
Yeah,
thought that was extraordinarily powerful, like a prayer
it is.
almost, when you don't know what to do with this painful phenomena inside.
Tell you a secret. We
Please.
give flowers. We give flowers on the altar with God, whatever it is, right? I guarantee you, he would rather have you give him that than a flower. You're giving what's keeping you from him or her. Understand? And that's what you're doing. You're offering something really meaningful. What did Christ say? You must die to be reborn. That is what that is. It's the willingness to die of the personal garbage that you have and be reborn in spirit.
One of the questions that was asked in Wisdom Untethered is, I'm doing these practices, I'm working with releasing some scars, I'm not suppressing, but they keep coming back. They keep coming back. They keep coming back. Michael, help me. They keep coming back.
If they write me, if I were to answer that, you know what I say? I would
Yep.
pranam, I would pranam to them and say, thank you for sharing your deep growth because that is what's supposed to be happening. When you pick up that tennis racket, there'll be balls every time. I still wasn't doing that. Or somehow they hit it back. I can't even get it back. What's wrong with me? There's nothing wrong with you. You're in a process of learning, and you have the right to learn. In fact, somebody once said to me back in the 70s, excuse me, Earth is a place that souls are sent to evolve. I'll repeat that. Earth, that little planet in the middle of nowhere, is a place that souls are sent to evolve. That's how you evolve. You get better at tennis by practicing. You don't sit there and say, God, I keep hitting to the net. Good, good. Because someday you'll learn to turn your wrist, you'll learn to pay more attention, and you'll be better. Practice doesn't mean perfect. That's a perfect master, right? But practice, there's no way when you practice a sport or an instrument, you don't get better. You may not be a concert pianist, but you're going to get better. So that's my answer if someone says it keeps coming back. Good. That means it's real. That means it's really in there. That means you really want to let that thing go. So just take any opportunity you have. And the thing is, no shame, no blame. You don't judge yourself. You don't say, I should have done better. If you do the best you can at this path, and you know what that means? It means every day I'm not staring. I'm just here. You're not out there stressing. There's no anxiety. There's no stressing. There's no place to go. It's all about, can you handle life? Can you let the reality of life come in and pass through you? It's going to take practice. And then you think you're done? Well, you're not done. There'll be more, don't worry. All right? But you welcome that. You ask me, what do I do? I have learned to take the attitude. I not only, it's not tolerating that stuff. I welcome it coming up. I throw it a party. All right? That you please come on up. And then I'll tell you, I'll be embarrassed to say it because it's only over the last 5 years or more that I looked down there and I started crying. I started apologizing to him as a part of the energy of my psyche that I shoved them into a closet, like locking a kid up because they misbehaved. All right. And I look at it and I say, I am so sorry that I was not clear enough and evolved enough to handle you when this all happened. I want to help you. All right. Come, take my hand. Take it to God. I will reach up. So that's your active process of welcoming it. You worship it. Why would you not worship that which you know keeps you from God? The closest you're getting to God, well, you're not enlightened, right, is dealing with that stuff. That's because it's blocking you. All right. Don't get me going.
Well, no, this is so powerful because I think a lot of times when buried, painful memories, traumas, inherited wounds come up, we think we've done something wrong. We think there's something wrong. We're off the path. Look what's wrong with me. At my age, I'm still having these things surface. And you're offering a completely opposite, it's such an important perspective, Michael, to say, thank you. I welcome you. You are the agent of my growth.
You said it better than I could. That is the, I've been at this, 52, 55 years. Now you're talking about what I've learned over all those years. All right. Is you pushed it down there. Don't feel guilty about it. Right. We weren't evolved enough. We weren't clear enough. We weren't ready to deal with things, especially as children. Right. But they don't have to be the formative years, meaning they formed your ego. Right. They did, and you made it through, hopefully, reasonably, whatever. Now it's time to wake up. Now it's time to evolve. Now it's time to say, I don't need that stuff down there, right? And I truly am sorry that we all did all kinds of things, right? Like here, you're in fifth grade math and you failed. You failed the test. You thought you got them all right. You studied as hard as you could, and you got 5 out of 10 wrong, all right? And you get held back. Let's say that, right? Now you got your PhD in advanced mathematics. Should you feel guilty because of what happened in your third grade? No, that's ridiculous. You should thank the third grader who got half of them wrong because that third grader went to the teacher and learned something they didn't know before. You wouldn't have got half wrong if you knew it. It's not ashamed. It's not ashamed to have a coach to teach you how to do something, right? So basically, that this attitude that we're supposed to be perfect, that's ridiculous. What you're supposed to be doing is practice makes perfect. And so you're working your way through yourself And if you do that, the only thing that's ever asked of you is the best of your ability. All right. And then what happens when it comes back, if it has some teaching for you, you welcome it. You don't say, I did my best and look what happened. You say, I did my best. Now I can learn to do better because I learned where it didn't work. And you just keep growing and growing. You never look back.
One of the things that moved me the most about many of the answers to the questions in Wisdom Untethered is people would share the real struggles going on in their life, the deep pains, and their inability to let them go. And like, I'm doing this wrong, and this is happening, and maybe I'm misunderstanding. And each time you had that attitude when someone shared with a lot of feeling their struggle, you bowed to them and you thanked them. You thanked them for telling the truth about their experience and wanting to work with it and being sincere about what they were going through. And, Michael, that moved me as much as the rest of the answer was your response to people of acknowledging their spiritual work.
Okay. So one of my clearest teachings that because I keep growing, right, is, psychology, which I respect very much, right? It's not, it can be spiritual and it leads to spirituality, right? It's a stepping stone and so on. But I have respect for people that are studying the mind, studying the emotions and so on, right? But what I have learned, and we all should learn it, and I stress it a lot in my talks, right, is psychology says man, women, is the sum of his learned experiences. Man is the sum of his learned experiences. Go look at them in the psychology books, right? And they're not wrong, but it's not true. I am the consciousness that my psyche that I pulled around myself is the sum of my learned experiences. If you're bothered by something, somebody next to you doesn't even know why you're bothered by that. I'm not bothered by that, right? How could you say that? I would never have said that. You had different experiences. Everybody had different experiences, right? But yours are not more special than anybody else's. You understand that? Everybody had experiences all through their life in China and Russia and here and there and Iran and everywhere, right? Every single person, there's 8.3 billion of us, right? Not to mention the ones that came before, right? Everyone, every moment of their life had an experience. And it was different than everybody else's experiences. So why would anybody be like you? All right. And you get to the point where you realize you have compassion. To me, that's the Buddha means by compassion. You have an understanding that's so deep that you don't judge anybody, you don't fault anybody. If somebody walks up to you and says something really, really mean to you, right? It's the sum of their learned experiences. They had a bad experience 5 minutes ago or 5 years ago, or you remind them of somebody that bothered them in high school that bullied them. Follow me? There's a reason they're being the way they're being. It doesn't mean you don't deal with it, but it does mean that you don't resist it. You honor it, you respect it, you respect. This is why that's for that person. Master used to say that, right? Right? A lot of people say it, right? Before you criticize someone else, walk a mile in their shoes. All right? Master used to say, but by my grace, there goes myself. That's an enlightened master. Guess what? It's true. Right? We all psychologically, ego-wise, mentally, emotionally, are the sum of our learned experiences. And if you question that, imagine the worst experience you ever had. Imagine it didn't happen. How would that have changed your life? Well, it would change it totally. That's because what you're carrying around, and there's a sum of learned experiences. So you get to the point where you stop judging people. You stop expecting things, right? People say, I got disappointed. You can't get disappointed if you didn't appoint. Now, that doesn't mean that you don't deal with things. First, you let go. First, you get clarity inside. Then you come out and you see what you can do to help, not help you. Apologize. Can't believe you said it to me. Apologize. Make me feel better. Apologize. No, 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 no. That's for you. That's not helping the situation. That's sitting there saying, I got bothered by what you did. All right? Get past that first, right? And then look outside and see how you can help, raise everybody, not just you. And so that's how I got where I get, right? It's just the understanding that, hey, we are all different. And that's why we all have different viewpoints, right? You want to change my viewpoint? Change my life. I can't believe you think like that. Okay, go back and change what my uncle did, what my grandmother did, what the high school teacher did. You follow me? because that's why you are the way. That's why you're psyche, not you. You're the consciousness watching all this. I hope you're back there enough, all right? But whether you are or not, you still are. You know you're getting upset. You know you have thoughts and emotions, right? You are the witness, right? But you're pulled down into what you're looking at, and so you're not able to stay in that seat. But that's how that level of compassion and understanding and true worship and respect for another human being comes from, is looking and realizing they're just like me. They seem different, but they're the sum of their learned experiences.
One of the early chapters has a series of questions on witness consciousness, which you'd mentioned. And one of the things you point out, and it's something, I've never really thought about it till you pointed it out. And so that's like, wow, this is kind of obvious, Tami, but you never thought about it, is that there are layers in the mind. Some of the questions were like, wait a second, how is the mind witnessing the mind? Isn't that the mind? And you were like, let's talk about the layers. So can you share a little more about that?
Obviously, there are layers of emotions, but let's just start with what's going on. Okay. Consciousness created the universe. Someday you'll realize that. People will realize that. Right? But they're down to the quantum field. I like teaching that stuff, all right? They're down to, there are no atoms. There are no atoms. They're made of electrons and protons. Then there are electrons, neutron, protons, not atoms. Well, there are not electrons, neutrons, protons, right? There are subatomic particles, quarks, leptons, bosons, to get down to quantum physics. But that's what's really there. You understand, it's like if you have ice, water, and steam, right? They are the same thing. They're just vibrating at different rates. Well, that's what's going on with every single thing you interact with. It's down there, and then they think scientists got down to there aren't even particles. There's just wavelets hitting each other in the quantum field. Well, the yogis understand those are vrittis, wavelets of divine mind, of consciousness. All right, so you start off with there's just consciousness. But I had to start making it very quick, right? Consciousness pays attention to the creation it made. Out of the consciousness came the wavelets, created everything, and the consciousness is experiencing it. You have this beautiful dance of God creating creation and experiencing and dancing with the creation he created. Well, what's wrong? I don't know. That's a garden. That's maybe Adam and Eve were there. I don't know, but I'm not a biblical person. All right. But then as a result, something went wrong. All right. I talk about it as the original sin, which I could never describe. That's too much. But what happened is that even consciousness that's experiencing everything the same, grass, snake, doesn't mean it's not a snake. The vibration is different than a butterfly. Fine, it comes in, you experience it, you'll pick it up, you experience it, and it passes through. And you keep the dance of creation takes place. Well, at some point, something came in that was so strong that it distracted the evenness of the consciousness to focus, and that's the key word, to focus on that vibration. The moment that creates duality, you now have created something separate from everything else because you focused on it. And so now you focused on it, and now happens from there. Now that thing determines something else, whether you like things, whether you don't like things, all of that goes down into that kind of a situation, scenario. And eventually you get to the point where you're lost. You're just sucked so much into the experiences you had that you couldn't handle, that you built this self-concept, which isn't you. It's a concept of self. You built a self-concept, and your consciousness, we go back to the question you asked, it is consciousness, it is God consciousness that is looking at your thoughts. It's just so focused on them that it can't get away from them. I use the word distracted. It got so distracted that consciousness now is focusing on your thoughts, your emotions, your feelings, and the world coming through your senses. And everyone's running around their divine God getting caught in themselves. And again, it's what Christ meant by die to be reborn. Okay? So that's the starting position, is that you are consciousness. Everybody knows they have thoughts. Why are we calling that witness consciousness? The difference is, are you aware that you're aware that there are thoughts? Or are you sucked into it so much, right? They don't even want to talk about it, right? Don't tell me, right? It's adorable. So that's how I see witness consciousness. We are all in it. We are all seated. In fact, right? I know people say, that use it to go to God, right? I've started to say, use it to not leave. You're already there. You're already fully enlightened. You're the highest being to walk the face of the earth. You understand that, right? But you're being distracted by these silly little things that your mind and your emotions, which how'd you pick them up? It's the sum of your learned experiences. You held on to the ones that bothered you a lot, and you held on to some of the ones you liked a lot too, and they're causing trouble because you want it to happen again. All right, you're judging against them. So that basically, we just call it clinging. You're clinging to that which disturbs you, clinging to that which you hope happens again. But believe, I don't have to bother with that because 8 million times more that disturb you than the ones that really blew you away across your life. So you built this thing inside of you, and now you can't get out. But you can get out. Everybody's capable of getting out, no matter what. But you have to be willing to let go of what you're staring at. That Glenn, we talked about it. That's the entire journey down and back up.
And the back up, which you describe, this rising, you reference it as Shakti.
Yeah.
Now, that is the yogic term for it. That's naturally, like right now, sitting here with me, are you feeling a Shakti upflow as we're talking?
I don't like to talk about it. It's never stopped from the moment I woke up, as if God touched me and just, well. So
Okay,
what
I
you
like
do is,
that. As if God touched me. I like that, Michael. Finish what
I don't
you
know
were
what
saying.
happened. One of my first meditations, I sat down and I read this through an experiment, right? I, my life has never, ever gone back from that moment. It completely changed the entire rest of my life, every minute, everything. Am I perfect? No way in any shape or form, right? Am I better than I used to be? Yeah, I am. I'm glad you know me now. But so basically, you just I wanted to go back there. It was the most beautiful experience I ever had, and I never let it go. I just sat there and said, and I used to fight to keep it, and I learned not to do that. Right? I learned that no, there's a reason you're being pulled. I'm more interested in you go into a deep meditation, which is wonderful. You all should meditate. It's wonderful, wonderful. You're gonna, I said, believe me, I better watch it because my gurus meditate, right? But I'm interested in you go into a deep meditation. How long does it take before you get pulled back down? How long does it take before you say, why is somebody calling me? Why is that happening? Oh my God, I forgot about this. And all of a sudden, boop, right? Why are you being pulled back down? It's really beautiful up there because you have this stuff in there and it distracts your consciousness. So that's why the path that I've learned to walk is I'm not going to fight to go up. I'm going to let go of what's holding me down. If there's an anchor to keep me from sailing, I'm not going to keep blowing wind in the sails and doing everything I can to try and keep moving, right? I'm picking that anchor up so I don't have to struggle anymore. And that becomes your path. And it works. It works. Because then the energy that can go up isn't being pulled back down. And eventually, yes, wait, you asked me a question. I don't like to talk about my state. I am nowhere. I am nothing. That's why I I make sure I pay respect to the great perfect masters because I ain't one. Right? And it's just beautiful to understand. We all got a ways to go, right? But I don't measure it. I just be grateful for whatever experiences I have. And, and what I've learned that over time is, and I don't even like to say he taught me to serve. That's ridiculous. That's it. Who's the he and who are you and what service? Just because you let go of yourself, what happens is service happens. You're not busy taking care of yourself anymore. You don't need to be taken care of. You're fine. The energy's feeding you, right? I'm a nice Jewish yogi, but the teachings of Christ, which I don't study them, right? But they keep coming back to me, right? He said, man does not live by bread alone, but by every word that leaveth the mouth of God. Well, what does that mean? I know what that means. You can get off on what's happening from outside. If you get what you want, it feels really good, right? But there's this energy inside. You want to call it spirit, Shakti, call it whatever you want. There's this energy, chi. There's this energy inside. It's really there. And when you stop blocking it and come in harmony with it, you wouldn't trade, right? You wouldn't trade the outside, any experience, for what can naturally go on inside of you when you're not blocked anymore. Okay?
I'm not going to obviously press you to describe your inner experience right now. However, I do think this one thing's important. which is when you reference the upward flow. I think for people who have never had that, or maybe had little glimpses, they're unclear. Like, is that Shakti flowing in me? Like, what is it? What does it feel
Oh,
like? Oh, I think that's it. And I know in my own life, when I started to feel this sort of inner rising river in front of the spine, I had wished that I had heard more about it. And then afterwards, I wanted to talk to people, but I was a little bit afraid, like, hey, you really want to talk about that, Tami? That, there's a sense of a geyser coming up. So I think it's helpful for people to have a reference point for what that is. So if you could talk
okay.
to that.
Okay. When people ask me questions, I always, I, I tell everybody, right? You can sit and listen, but when you walk away, don't even remember a single thing I said, right? Because I just don't approach it the same as everybody else, right? It is not true they've not felt the Shakti. It's absolutely not true, okay? You are having a child and you're holding it for the first time. How do you feel? Oh, it's one of those magic moments, isn't it? All right. You're in love with somebody, and for the first time, they come up to you and say, I've been embarrassed to tell you, but ever since kindergarten, I think you walk on water, right? I just love you so much. How you doing? You're feeling Shakti. Do you understand that? Okay. And as you feel an upward rise, don't you? You feel the heart open, don't you? People can have all kinds of deep experiences, right? And a sunset. Ever turn the corner and by surprise, you're not looking for anything? There's all those majestic colors and you go bye-bye. You understand it? And you use words like this, it touched me to the depth of my being. Anything ever touched you to the depth of your being? I felt like I was in the presence of God. It's a rare experience. Music can do it to you. You understand it? You can sit there and just melt completely. That is Shakti. Period. Okay? That is Shakti. But it's conditional. It's conditioned on things happening the way that match your psyche. That which turns you on turns somebody else off. That which turned you on yesterday turns you off today. 5 minutes later, somebody will tell you one thing about somebody. You used to love them. Now you don't want to talk to them ever again. You following? The sum of your learned experiences. So that's what's happening is you've blocked the Shakti. You know it's there. There's this tremendous potential for joy inside. All right. So that's all I'm talking about is stop blocking it. And if you stop blocking it, then a bird sings and you feel all the Shakti come up. All right. Then so anything, everything. All right. I always tell the story as follows, right? You're standing with a bunch of friends, right? Maybe in college, whatever it is, right? And somebody starts to walk across the street, you're just talking, everybody's talking together. And somebody starts to walk across the street and you start to blush. You say, oh my God, she's going to come up. She is such I don't know why, she has such respect for me. Wait till you see, all right? Wait till you see what she has to say. And the person walks up, he or she, and says, oh my God, there you are. I love you so much. You're so beautiful. They're talking to you, right? Okay, you let it go. 5 minutes later, somebody else starts to walk up from the distance who hates your guts, who has nothing nice to say about you, dishes you for every single person they meet, all right? And you say to your friends, oh my God, here she comes, right? She hates my guts. Wait do you see? Wait do you see what she's got to say? And she walks up and says, oh, blah, 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 and dumps all over you, right? And you feel the same ecstasy from both. Understand that? You didn't close one iota because the energy that came in, you thought was adorable, right? I had a spiritual teacher once tell me, all right, very, very high lady, a lot of respect for her. She's passed some years ago, right? She would never talk personal. She was a very, very sincere yogini. And she leaned over to me once and she said, Miki, I said, yes. She says, don't you just love when they yell at you? There's so much energy. She channeled the freaking energy of people yelling at her. All right. So the point of the matter is we have experienced Shakti. We just block it. We made it conditional. Things have to be exactly, and I mean exactly, the way we want for us to open it all. All right. And how about the heart chakra? Has your heart ever opened? Can you keep it open all the time? Huh? Is it open just as much? They call it puppy love, right? No, it's love, right? The trouble is, as you start to go through experiences together and have problems and fight, then it's so hard to keep it open. You said good for the kids. No. If you don't want the Shakti to stop flowing, you can have that love unconditionally all the time. Now I'm talking about chakras. right? And it can go up the spine, and it can go to the third eye, and it can do all these things. So I just took issue that people say, I don't know what the Shakti feel. And I left out, because I don't want to talk, I never talk about it. One of those lower centers, I forgot what number it was. And you know what I'm talking about. A little bit of Shakti there, eh? Right? People have felt Shakti. People have felt energy. It's all the same energy. The question is, at what level is it expressing itself, and how much are you willing to let it get past your psyche? Fair enough?
Fair enough, and very good and very helpful. So I'm reading Wisdom Untethered, and I am feeling the Shakti through my system. And then I get to a chapter that's on preferences, one of the sections. And this is kind of funny. And I thought, I don't like this chapter. I don't like this chapter. And I thought, oh, that's your preference, Tami. You don't like this chapter. So I kept reading the book. I'm like, I'm going to skip it. And then I thought, you should go back. You should go back. What's going on? Like, I started to get suspicious of myself. And then I read there's a relationship between your fears and your preferences. And I thought, yeah, that makes sense. And, you know, my preferences, I love my preferences. I mean, I know exactly the kind of tea I like. I have a special brand. I know exactly the kind of my favorite gelato. And I could go on and on, not just food and drink preferences, all kinds. So how are my preferences related to fears? And how do I relate to them intelligently on the path you're teaching?
So let's start this way. Of course you have preferences. Why? Because you're the sum of your learned experiences. You understand that? You like a tea that somebody else spits out. Why? I don't know. You know, put it all together. I don't care. The point is, be it biological, be it taste buds, be it experience. Maybe you had that tea with somebody once and it really hit you right. And so, right? It's just basically the sum of your learned experiences, including your body. That's part of your learned experiences, right? Okay, I'm not denying that there's DNA and different stuff, right? That's part of your learned experience. You're living with that, and living with the psyche, and living with all kinds of experiences, all right? So you will naturally be drawn toward or like something because you've had experiences with it, right? You see somebody you haven't seen for years that you love, you're going to open. You love that experience, right? You see somebody you can't stand them and they show up, right? And you have a bad experience. So it's your preferences are the sum of your learned experiences. That's what they are. Is there anything wrong with them? Of course not. There's nothing wrong with them. There's nothing wrong with saying I can't be okay unless I'm getting what I want, which is what everybody's saying, right? And they're not just saying, well, they are, right? All right, give me what I want. I'll be blowing my ear. I'll follow you anywhere. Criticize me. I'm out of here, right? If you get your preferences, it opens you. Fair enough? If you get what you want, it opens you. Who can deny that, right? If you get what you don't want, it closes you. All right? So we extrapolate that into, now I must devote my life to getting what I want and avoiding what I don't want. I have to choose what job I want and what's going to turn me on, and et cetera, what I have passion about, and blah, blah, blah. What do I want to do? What do I not want to do? Who do I like? Who do I not like? And you just basically, you project your preferences out into the world and say, be my way. You see a lot of that nowadays, don't you? Be my way. I want you to be my way. There can't be any other way. Be my way. All right? And you eventually get to the point where you realize, are these things a benefit or a problem? Because they're causing a lot of stress. If I don't get my preferences, I'm not so happy. If I get what I don't want, oh, forget it. And you're out there struggling with the world. All right? And you get to the point eventually where you realize that I'm getting late. The Buddhist teachings are exactly there. The Buddha said all life is suffering. It doesn't mean you broke your arm every day or so on, but rich people are suffering. Believe me, read the papers. The billionaires are suffering probably more than anybody else, suing each other, having all kinds of problems, right? And all kinds of people suffer. They suffer. Old people, young people, rich people, women, men. Everybody is struggling, all right? And the Buddha was brilliant. His noble truths are phenomenal. His second noble truth is the cause of suffering is preference. It's usually translated as desire. The cause of suffering is desire. But in the West, we think of desire as passion, lust, greed. All right? No. A desire is something you have because of a preference. There's no way that you create a desire unless you prefer something. And that's deeper. Seeing it as the cause of suffering is preference, because it is. If you don't care about anything, about that, a particular thing, right? Then here's two teas. You like them both the same. Which one do you want? I don't care, right?
Right.
If
And
you,
I need to add this in because I realize we don't have a lot of time. And I think
no,
this
we
is
don't.
important because I gave the examples of things that are very innocuous and not
Yes.
important. But I'm imagining the person who says, I have a preference for not having this illness. I mean,
Then you go,
something
okay, guess what?
serious.
Yeah, yes. If you have a preference for not having the illness, you have the illness, you're going to suffer. You'll suffer because of the illness, and you'll suffer because you don't want to have it. We're talking deep now, right? Is it possible that I have the illness and I deal with it? I welcome it. This is what's happening in my life. This is what's happening. I have this illness, right? I want to grow from it. I want to learn from it. I'm not saying I'm going to resist it. That's what happens when you have preferences. You resist certain things and cling to other things. But I don't teach to get rid of your preferences. Like, we'll do it quick, right? I had somebody once come to me, a very wealthy person from California, came and visited, all right? And they were very deep. I was very surprised. And they said to me, right, when they left, same to you, same to you, I like my preferences. And I remember I wrote, because, the Thursday Patriarch said, the great way is not difficult for those who have no preferences, right? And so the Thursday Patriarch came down and gave me a special dispensation, right? That I get to change his famous quote to, the great way is not difficult for those who prefer everything. I'll repeat it. The great way is not difficult for those who prefer everything. That's the same as having no preferences. And I like that much better, right? Just welcome and prefer life. Prefer every experience, prefer every single thing that happens, and then the great way is over. Enlightenment will take place because you're not separating what you like from what you dislike. All right, you made me go very deep.
I appreciate it. And I do have one more question I have to ask you because it's really the question of our time. And I think some people would say, are you willing to let go? Are you willing to surrender and to accept during a time when passivity in the face of injustice is unacceptable for people of conscience? So I'm sure this is a question, Michael, that you get in many different forms. You address it in Wisdom Untethered. Can you give us the pith of that now?
Yeah, it's very straightforward. If it's bothering you, let's do it this way. Let's say you sit there and say, I can't handle this. I can't handle this. I can't handle the injustice. I can't handle things. Well, if you can't handle it, you're the wrong person. If you're driving by a car accident and you say, I can't handle the sight of blood, well, just keep on driving, baby, because you're not going to help anybody. So if you literally can't handle it inside, you can't deal with it outside. All right? Because what we're trying to do is change it so you'd be okay. It's personal. You're trying to change it so that doesn't bother you. That's not helping. All right? Helping is, okay, it's reality. I'm sorry, it's just reality. That's what it is. All right? Can I handle it? Of course I can handle it. If I really want to, I want you to. Okay, now what? Okay, I let go. That's letting go. I let go. Now what? Nobody's asking to be passive. Of course not. Life is an interactive sport, right? You now come down with clarity because it's not about you anymore. You have clarity and you look and say, how can I help? You're not passive. March, protest, do whatever you want, right? But do it with love. Do it with understanding that everyone else is the sum of their learned experiences. Can you understand that? Now, how can you help? How can you actually help the situation instead of becoming another opposing force? All right. So there's the answer. Is no one's telling you to be passive. We're saying don't be ego driven. You're complaining everyone else is ego driven. Don't you be ego driven because it doesn't fit what you want. Can you be open enough, the non-dual enough, to be open enough? And then by all means, for God's sakes, you have a responsibility. You're God dancing in his creation. All right. So dance, right? But don't dance in your name. Don't dance because you can't handle it. That's how I teach it.
In Wisdom Untethered, as I mentioned, 23 chapters, 200 questions. We've probably covered, I don't know if I was trying to think of a number in my head, less than 10% of all of the different topics that you touch on in the book. Towards the end, you say, in spirituality, the most important thing is your motive.
Yeah.
Let's end by talking about that. What is the motive that you think will best support our spiritual growth?
Yeah, that's all we've talked about all night. The motive is, I'm in here, I'm conscious. It ain't so good in here, right? Which is why I'm out there struggling with all the different things we talk about, all right? My motive, right, is to let go of whatever's stuck inside of me so that the natural flow can go up and you become a servant of God. Not my motive is not to become a servant of God. No, Pat, I don't want you telling me you know what God wants. No. Your motive is to let go of what's keeping you from the higher state, right? And then the rest will take care of itself, right? So I don't like the motive saying, I want to go to God. I wanted this, I wanted that, all right? I see this stuff in here. You do, we all do, all right? My motive and my intention every moment is to let go of what's holding me down and then let the rest take place naturally by itself. That's the best I can say.
I've been talking with Michael Singer. This year, Wisdom Untethered was released, The Time for Questions. It's a book you can sit with, read one question and its answer, apply it, start working with it. Sit for a few moments and keep it right near you. I love this book, Michael. Thank you so much for the work you and your team did to put it together.
Thank you, Tami.